Here I'm going to show you how to very quickly and easily take data from the web, paste it into Excel, get it ready to analyze, and then slice it and dice it. But as you may know, it's a bit of a mess when it gets into Excel, so let's make that better. And I'm going to put a bunch of links in the description of this video to other tutorials I've made that will also help you further analyze the data once it's in Excel and ready to go. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel where you're going to see lots and lots of helpful Excel tutorials. Now let's open up a browser here and go to a website. Here I've got Firefox, a very nice browser, and what we're going to do here is to look at the options chain for a GameStop. Now it doesn't matter what you use for the example here, the point is it's something from the web. It's not really made to go into Excel. GameStop is a bit fun because, especially if you watch this in the future, you're going to find it crazy how the strike price is $6.90 for this stock. But this isn't about stocks. The point is the data that I want right here is this table right here. I don't care about the stuff above it or below it. So how do I copy paste it? Well, the first tip is this. If you have a table of data in a website and you want to bring it into Excel, you always want to make sure that you select above the table and below the table so that you can keep the structure of the table when it gets pasted into Excel. Now the easy way around this, when you have a table that fits almost the entire web page, or just any web page, is to hit Control A and select the entire web page like this. Then Control C, and then it's going to copy everything. We go back to Excel, select cell A1, and then Control V to paste it in there. And depending on your browser, this will paste a little bit different. So if you use another browser, you may get a lot more formatting or a lot less formatting. But the important thing now is do not select anything else. All the data that we pasted into here has been selected for you. So the first thing that you want to do is to go up to the Home tab and click Wrap Text twice. Now this isn't such a big problem with the Firefox browser, but if you use Google Chrome, this data is going to be very messed up. And wrap text once is going to make it like this. This is usually how it imports from Chrome. And clicking wrap text again, you have to click it twice if you get it from Chrome, is going to make it look like this, which is what we want. Then, with all the data still selected, go over on the Home tab to the little Clear button. And we are going to want to clear formats and to remove hyperlinks. So if you notice over here on the left, ICE, NYSE, contact, these are all hyperlinks to other websites or to other parts of the website we were just on, and you don't want those. So first go to remove hyperlinks and then click it again and go to clear formats. That will make everything default basic text. The next thing is to identify where your table is located. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult because it won't come in such a nice structure. And then go above it. We don't want any of this data, so I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to hit delete this time to clear everything that's in it. And how about we get rid of a few rows, but not all of the rows. So select them. If you select an entire row, you can right-click the row header, and then go to delete, and it will delete the entire row. Now let's go to the end of the table, and a very quick way to get here, since it's a very big table, is to click over here in the far right column and hit Control arrow key down. It's going to go to the very last cell that is contiguous, and that takes us to the very end of our table. And now we don't want anything else that is copied in below this table. So I'm just going to arrow key down once more. I'm now below the table where I want to be, and I'm going to hit Control arrow key right. And the reason for that is because, let's go back to the left, we see here there's no data, correct? But we could have hundreds and hundreds of rows of additional data that copies in, and we don't know where it ends, in which column it ends. So what we do here when we hit Control arrow key right is we go all the way to the end of the spreadsheet. And then we hit Control Shift arrow key down. That will go to the very bottom of the spreadsheet and select everything. So now I can hit Control Shift arrow key left. This step's not required. I could do this with this column right here, but I'm going to do this anyway. Control Shift arrow key left. And if you need to again, just left, 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 left. Make sure you select all the way over to the left, and then right click the row header or in here, it doesn't matter at this point, and go to delete. And it's going to delete the entire row. I'm going to hit Control arrow key left once again, and we can see we are in column A and there is nothing below the table. To verify that, hit Control arrow key down and it should go to the end of the spreadsheet. So now we have taken everything except for the table of data that we want. I'm going to hit Control Home to very quickly go back to the top, and we have only our table. I'm going to show you two ways to go through this. The first is just a basic filter, and then the next one is changing it into a table. And the point of this is that I probably don't want to keep repeating going to this website and getting the options chain all the time. So I don't need to create some crazy system for analyzing my data or an import web query that's going to refresh everything. I just want to take a look at it right now. So let's make it so we can filter it, and then I'll show you a couple ways to analyze it using the subtotal formula and a really great formula with the index, match, and large. So we could just click in here and go to Data and Filter, but remember we have just taken this from the web and it doesn't always import in a nice way. So what I'm going to do is to hit Control Shift arrow key right and make sure that it selects all the columns I want included, and then Control Shift arrow key down. Now here it has selected the entire table, but this is where I would go here and say, hey, did it select everything, yes or no? And if it didn't, I could hit Control Shift arrow key down again, or just Shift arrow key down to go down one additional row, and to the right using the right arrow key while holding Shift. That way we can make sure we have all the data correctly selected. Then just click Filter and Control Home to very quickly go back up to the top. And there we go. So now we can very quickly filter and go through the data here. And let's say that we care about some open interest values. It's a little bit off the screen right here, but maybe we want to go for number filters, and I want to show everything that is greater than, how about 500? So if there's more than 500 for the open interest, I want to see all of that here. But now I want to see how many of them there are right here. And the first way to do that is just what I did right there. Select it, and then go to the bottom right, and you're going to see average, count, and sum. So you don't even have to input a formula. You don't have to think about it. You have got three useful values there when you want to analyze basic numbers like this. So I can see it's 19,673 open interest. But now let's use a formula to do that. And there are two formulas that we can use to do that. And it's nice to do it above the data table here because, like I said, this isn't a permanent template we're making. We just want to analyze the data. So I'm going to use, let me zoom in here a little bit so it'll be easier to see. And the next formula is going to be complex anyway. So equal subtotal. You can also use the aggregate function for this. So instead of subtotal, we could do equals aggregate. It is a great function. It's basically a more powerful version of the subtotal function. But here I'm going to use just the subtotal function because it has fewer arguments. It's very simple and it works on, I believe, more versions of Excel. So subtotal. Now this allows you to perform some calculations on data that is being filtered. And what calculations? These right here. Now in older versions of Excel, I believe it only gives you the numbers. I don't think it actually tells you which function the number applies to, and that's unfortunate, and you have to figure out that by going to the Microsoft Excel help website. But here it's very easy. I want to sum the data. So 9 for sum, then comma, and now what do I want to sum? Everything for open interest. And what I'm going to do to make sure that I select the entire column, since I have already filtered it, is to click the header row and then hit Control Shift down. And then I'm going to hit Shift down one more time to make sure that I select below the table. Because right now we have many filtered rows. And the first selected row here would not be G8, it would be G122. And now that we're done, we can close it up, hit enter, and there we have the subtotal 19,673. And you want to verify to make sure it's all good, so Control Shift down, look down to the right, 19,673 for the sum, perfect. And now we can clear the filter. You want to make sure that everything works correctly. And we can see 36,658. Okay, is that correct? Let's go here and then Control Shift down. 36,658. Perfect. No matter how many times I enter a formula, if the result of it matters, I'm always going to be testing it. Now if you use a table, it will automatically add these subtotals to the bottom of the table if you allow it to. But when I'm doing a very quick analysis of data like this, I don't like to do that. I just want to put it up here where I want it. I don't want to have a totals row all the way at the bottom. I want it here. And then maybe another thing that I want is to figure out the largest value, second largest, third largest, fourth largest. And we can use a really nice, interesting, and potentially complex formula for that. But if you're kind of lost in what I'm about to do next or in anything that you see here, check the description of this video for additional links to other tutorials I have made that explain many of these topics in more detail. Here we are going to use a number of functions to do what I just mentioned, to get the largest, second largest, third largest value for the open interest and so on. So I want to figure out the strike price for the largest number of open interest. First up, we use the index function. That's what's actually going to return the value. And then I tell it where I would like to return the value from. Well, I want to return it from here. So I select the very first cell, I hit Control, Shift, arrow key down. And since the entire table is visible, I don't have to worry about going one below the table here. And next up, I do a comma, and the very next argument, it looks funky here because I'm at the bottom of the worksheet, so let me go back up. But the very next argument is the row number argument. So how do we know from which row in this highlighted column to return a value? Well, we use the match function for that. And this is a standard index match so far, which can be thought of as a much more powerful and useful VLOOKUP. So we have the match function, and the first argument is the lookup value. So which value do we want to return from this column? Well, if it's the largest or second largest or third largest, we can use the large function. It is a great function here. You input an array, so a selection of cells, and then you tell it which largest value do you want to return. Now the array of values is going to be the open interest. So I select that, hit Control Shift arrow key down, then comma. This time I'm just going to stay down here to finish it up. The array, you can see right over here, the additional arguments are right here, and the formula bar has the full formula down here. So you don't always have to go back up to the worksheet to finish it. Now for the largest value, let's go with a 1 for now. So 1. Then close that up, and we're now back into the match function. And the next argument is the lookup array. And that says, hey, where do you want to look for that largest value? Well, right here. The same column that the large function is going to use. So I'm just going to click the bottom cell this time, hit Control Shift arrow key up, and then Shift arrow key down 1, and then we have selected the exact same range. And then I do a comma. Match type is very important. I want an exact match in this case, so 0. Then close up match, and now we are back in the index function. Don't need to do anything else here because we only selected one column for the index. So close that up, hit enter, and there we go. The strike price with the largest number of open interests is 690. But let's make it so it works with this cell right here. So I can change that. Well, I go here, large function where I input the 1, remove that, and click this cell right here. Hit enter, and of course we have an error, so let's input 1. We get 690. How about the second largest one, 2? 300. And now we've done some very quick and simple analysis of our data set. And even though it took a little bit of time for me to input this, this is one of the things that I most often use when I want to analyze some data that I've just quickly copy-pasted into Excel. And the more that you input this, the easier it will become, to the point where you can input this in no time flat. It will just take you no time at all. And you'll be able to get this formula in the downloadable file as well. And the last note on this formula, if you're unfamiliar with it, is if you're going to be copying and pasting this guy around, make sure that you put $signs around all of these references so you make them absolute references. Because then you can make an entire list, and maybe you want to show the top 5. Well, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then have this guy to the right where you can see the top 5 values. But for the last thing, I want to show you how to change this guy into a table and then perform, well, pretty much the same types of analysis that you can perform using the filter. You just may prefer using a table because a table is quite nice. So let me back up a little bit. And what I'm going to do is to click in here and take the filter off, and then simply hit Control T or go to Insert, Table, and check My Table has headers. It makes your life much easier when working with tables, and the header row is right here in row 7. Hit OK, and now we have a table. So it adds the formatting initially. If you don't like the formatting, you can also go to the Table Design tab and change the style over here to whatever you want. But the point of this is to make your life very quick and easy. So let's say we want to analyze the top 10 open interests right here. And we could have done this with the filter, by the way, what I'm about to show you. Because what we do is we just go here, click the drop down arrow, click Number Filters. It's a little bit off the screen right now, but you click Top 10, and we get this great window, Top 10 Auto Filter. Show top, how many items? 10 items. And you can also do bottom as well. Then click OK, and you get the top 10 open interest items, and we can see all of their strike prices right here. And if you want to get that totals row that I mentioned previously, click in the table, go to Table Design, Total Row. It's going to add it right here. Then we can click under the open interest, the drop down arrow, and it is off the screen, but click Sum, and we get the sum. Notice 17663 is exactly the same as what we have up here in our subtotal formula. Now, there are about a million other things that we could do with the data, but I wanted to show you this because this right here is one of the common things that I do when I'm browsing the web looking for something, and I think, you know what, I could analyze that better in Excel. So let me just pop it into Excel. And 90% of the time, no, 99% of the time, I never turn it into a table. I just use a couple formulas which I've memorized and used hundreds of times over, combined with the Control and the Shift and the arrow key keyboard shortcuts to very quickly analyze all of the data. And if you want to get this sample file, make sure to head over to teachexcel.com and download it. The link to this particular file is going to be in the description of this video, along with a bunch of other links as well. And if you like this tutorial, make sure to subscribe and like the video.